Alright, in this video we will look at capacitors. And the first thing is the circuit symbol for capacitors, which is something that looks like this. This is a circuit symbol for capacitors. And we don't want to confuse this with voltage sources. A voltage source has a symbol that looks like this. In some cases you can draw it like this, with a plus and a minus. Plus minus. This is a voltage source. Here we have this kind of curved line for capacitors. What capacitors do is it holds charge or stores charge, and the charge is then released. For example, the flash in a camera will hold a charge, and then when you need it, then when you press the button, then it releases a charge all at once, and you have a huge surge of this current going through the LED, and the LED will flash. So that's one example of using capacitors. A battery can be considered as a capacitor too, because it holds charge, and you keep on using up that battery. You keep on using up that charge that's been held in the capacitor. Well, so the basic idea of capacitors is that it holds energy, it holds charge. So for capacitors, we use C for capacitors, and the units for this is farads. Farads is the units for capacitors because of the person named Faraday, who came up with a lot of concepts for electricity. And so in honor of him, the units for capacitors is farads. In the PowerPoint, I'll have some pictures of various different shapes and sizes of capacitors. For example, you can have a 100 millifarad, or you could have a microfarad. So let's look at the different units. So millifarad is 10 to the negative 3, so this is 10 to the minus 3 farads. And then microfarad, we use the Greek letter micro, mu, and then microfarad is 10 to the negative 6 farads. And you can also have milli, micro, and then nano. And you can micro electronics. Now in the future we may have nano electronics, which is even smaller by a factor of 1,000. So this is 10 to the negative 9 farads. So something very, very small. And you can also have just farads, which will be a very big capacitor. Typically these are huge capacitors. And we can have capacitors in circuits, in an electrical circuit. So for example, if you have a source like this connected to a resistor that we saw in the previous video, we can connect this to a capacitor, which looks like this. And then remember, it has to be a closed loop. So here you have a capacitor, here you have a resistor, and here you have your voltage source. We'll have S to indicate that this is a source. Okay, so current will flow through the resistor, flow through the capacitor, and go back here. And this is called current. And the units for current is amperes. Okay. All right. So in the next video, I'll look at introduce what inductors are. And an example for capacitors is the component over here. So this is the capacitor. Let's see if I can. Okay, so we'll make a mark of the capacitor over here. So this is your capacitor. Okay. And this is your LED, and it's the flash for your camera. So you can see that the capacitor is pretty big compared to the other components next to it. So it holds a lot of charge. And as the button for the camera is clicked, then the charge from this capacitor will surge into the LED, and you will have that flash. So that is one of the main applications for the capacitors in here. Capacitors are also used in a lot of other applications. For example, filters. If you want to filter through a certain frequency band compared to other frequencies, then you can use capacitors and inductors. Okay, so we'll look at other electrical components as well.